they don't. Todd Monken went out of his way. He was asked, like, has anything surprised you with these quarterbacks? And he went out of his way to make comments in that answer about Deshaun and about Shedeur. He didn't make any comments about the other two. So I think the only thing we can say definitively now is that those two have separated themselves from the other two guys. And Taylor Green was never really going to be like a true factor in this competition because he's just.
Nobody expected this. A quarterback battle that everyone said was already decided, and suddenly it's not. Think about this for a second. You're Shedeur Sanders. Your whole life, people have been waiting for you to fail. Not just hoping, waiting. And now you're standing in Berea, Ohio, at Cleveland Browns OTAs in a room full of NFL veterans under a brand new head coach who owes you absolutely nothing. No favors, no history, no loyalty. Just performance. And somehow, you're making them pay attention.
The meetings, the install, this is a brand new offense. And part of the thing when Kevin was relieved of his job, everybody talked about, this is going to be great for Shedeur, great for Deshaun. Well, I will say this, when you bring a new guy in, everything is clear. So everything that everybody has said about Deshaun and his injuries and how he's played, that's all very true. And that Shedeur is this or he's that.
Let's back up. Because to understand what's happening right now with Shedeur Sanders, you have to understand the weight he's been carrying since the moment his name appeared on NFL draft boards. He's Deion Sanders' son. That's the first thing most people say. Not his completion percentage, not his win record at Colorado, not the fact that he threw for over 4,000 yards in a single college season. No, first thing, his dad. And look, Deion Sanders is one of the greatest athletes to ever live. Prime time, Hall of Famer, undeniable. But being the son of a legend in professional sports, that's not a gift, that's a target. Every practice rep Shedeur takes, someone somewhere is watching and looking for a reason to say he doesn't belong. Every incompletion, every hesitation, every mistake gets magnified in a way that other quarterbacks simply don't experience. The pressure isn't just from coaches or the front office. It's cultural, it's generational, it's everywhere.
We just got to kind of see what it looks like at mandatory minicamp before we kind of get that answer. But, obviously people are interested in finding out who's going to be the starter. And there's a debate to be had over like Deshaun versus Shedeur and who you want. And we can have those things. But I just feel like I've done that conversation a ton. I think you've done that conversation a ton. So at this point, it really is just kind of a.
Before OTAs even started, the narrative was already being written without him. Social media had decided. Pundits had their takes ready. A lot of people had already penciled in Deshaun Watson as the starter, if healthy, or figured it was Watson's job to lose and Shedeur was just there, a backup in waiting, a feel-good story with an expiration date. Some analysts questioned whether his college system truly translated to the NFL level. Others pointed to his draft position. He slid further than many expected and used that as proof that the league had already made its judgment. And there were fans, Browns fans who'd been burned so many times, who've watched this franchise cycle through quarterbacks like seasons change. They weren't interested in storylines. They wanted results. They wanted someone who could actually move the ball, make decisions under pressure, and not fall apart when Jacksonville scores on the opening drive. That's a tough crowd to win over. But here's what most of those takes missed entirely.
Picture on like who the starter is going to be. I thought it was interesting that in that answer, he highlighted the fact that Shedeur has taken major strides in his ability to like read a defense, identify coverages, all those different things. So I think that's huge that he's complimenting him in that way. But we just don't have a clear answer.
The comparison to his father was always going to be unfair. Deion played corner. Shedeur plays quarterback. Those are two completely different psychological experiences on a football field. Deion lived on instinct and athleticism. The quarterback position demands something different: patience, processing, leadership under chaos. And then there's the Deshaun Watson conversation. Watson was once considered one of the most talented quarterbacks in the NFL before everything that happened off the field. He had Pro Bowl talent, playoff wins, and genuine star power. Coming back from where he's been, physically and reputationally, is its own complicated story. So Shedeur isn't just competing against a guy, he's competing against a ghost, a version of Deshaun Watson that people remember and either love or resent. That's a strange thing to run against in a quarterback competition. And yet, here in Berea, something unexpected is happening. What you notice about Shedeur Sanders, if you watch him carefully, is that he's unusually calm for someone in his position. That's not nothing.
Whoever wins is going to be the guy who plays, and that's it. And if Shedeur is going to have to practice better, if we all know Watson's going to practice great and then not playing the game great, well, that's the only thing that Todd Monken knows is how they practice. So the guy who practices better is going to.
The new head coach, Todd Monken, was asked about his quarterbacks. He was asked if anything surprised him, and the way he answered said everything. He talked specifically about Deshaun. He talked specifically about Shedeur. He went out of his way to highlight the strides Shedeur has made in reading defenses, identifying coverages, the mental side of the game that separates guys who look good in spring from guys who actually win in September. He didn't say that about the other two quarterbacks in the room. That's meaningful. Coaches choose their words carefully in May. When Monken decides to highlight your football intelligence in a public setting, unprompted, that's not an accident. Shedeur's internal wiring seems different from what people expected. He doesn't appear rattled by the noise. He doesn't fire back at critics online. He just practices. He processes. He competes. For a kid who grew up with a father who commanded every room he walked into, maybe Shedeur learned something important, that real confidence doesn't need to announce itself. OTAs are voluntary, no full pads, limited contact. A lot of people dismiss them, and that's fair to a point.
But what you can evaluate is decision-making, route timing, ball placement, pre-snap reads, where a quarterback's eyes go, whether he trusts his receivers, whether he panics or stays in his process when the first read isn't open. And by those measures, Shedeur has been doing what good quarterbacks do in the spring. He's been right. Not perfect. Nobody's perfect in May, but consistently in the right spot mentally, throwing with anticipation, understanding where the defense is trying to take him, and not taking the bait. Meanwhile, the rest of the defensive backfield has been getting some attention too. New additions coming in, competition everywhere on the roster. The Browns aren't just patching holes. They're trying to genuinely rebuild the culture and identity of this football team. And in the middle of all that construction, Shedeur Sanders is quietly putting bricks down. Now look, Browns fans are a complicated group, in the best possible way. They've been through things. The moves, the seasons, the quarterbacks. They're not easily impressed, and they're not going to crown someone because of a good week in shorts and helmets. But something is shifting slightly in how people are talking about this competition. The conversation has moved, even if just a little, from is Watson healthy enough to, is Shedeur actually competing for this job?
That's a different question, a more interesting one. And sports analysts who cover the Browns daily are starting to say what fans are sensing. The starter is going to be the guy who practices better, not the guy with the better story, not the guy with the bigger name, the guy who earns it between now and mandatory minicamp. That levels the playing field in a way that should excite everyone watching. Here's what this moment actually represents. Todd Monken came in with a clean slate, new offensive system, new standards, no debt to the past. When you install a completely new offense, history doesn't transfer. Every quarterback in that building starts from zero. They're all learning the same language at the same time. That eliminates one of the biggest obstacles Shedeur had coming in. He wasn't playing catch-up to a system that was already built around someone else. Everyone is catching up together. And in that environment, the guy with the sharpest mind, the fastest processing speed, and the most consistent execution wins the job. If that has it play out, Shedeur Sanders is in a very interesting position right now. The Browns have a fourth-place schedule this season. That's not nothing. There's a real path to relevance if, and it's a big if, the quarterback situation sorts itself out. The defense looks like it could be genuinely elite. New pieces in the secondary, a new defensive coordinator in Mike Rutenberg, and competition everywhere in the backfield. If that unit plays the way it's capable of playing, you don't need a superstar quarterback. You need someone smart, someone steady, someone who can win with the team around him rather than needing to carry it alone. That profile, it fits what Shedeur Sanders has been showing. This is where you hit subscribe if you're not already on board, because this Shedeur Sanders story is going to develop all summer, and you're going to want every update as this quarterback competition heats up going into mandatory minicamp and training camp. Don't miss it. Nobody handed Shedeur Sanders anything. Not the draft position people said he deserved, not the starting job, not the respect, not even the benefit of the doubt. He walked into Cleveland carrying a famous last name, a target on his back, and more doubt than most quarterbacks his age will ever face. And instead of shrinking from it, instead of letting the noise get inside his head, he just kept practicing, kept studying, kept competing. That's all you can do. That's all any of them can do. Mandatory minicamp is coming. Training camp will follow. The real answers arrive in the fall. But right now, in the middle of May, in a practice facility in Berea, Ohio, Shedeur Sanders is making the Cleveland Browns think twice. And that alone is a story worth watching.